What time is it? 1:30 a.m. All right. Let's get this episode done. Passion public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something. So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for passion, no last necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am Passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast. Greetings and salutations, my beloved passionates, newcomers, visitors, and guests. Welcome to another episode of the Passion PSA podcast, where I, Passion No Last Necessary, issue a weekly public service announcement about whatever I've observed or was on my mind. This is a for your consideration zone, where the objective is to offer a perspective you may not have previously considered, to A, expand your thinking, and B, for you to become a better version of yourself, for yourself, and for others. This is a safe space, but not necessarily a delicate one. I will never rob you of your right to feel what you feel, the same way I won't sugarcoat what it is I have to say. So, passionates, I am back in the space, but things are not 100% back situated. So I decided that's what I wanted to talk to you all about. So I want to take you back to the end of last year, the end of 2021, towards the end of season 1. We talked about the fact that I had a gas leak that was going on, and we talked about it in a couple of episodes. What ended up happening was eventually we finally got it resolved, but it left the house in disarray. In the midst of all of that, I had the house inspected so that I could get work done, because there were cracks in the walls and the floors needed to be replaced and all kinds of things needed to be taken care of. Scheduled all the appointments, and because they were behind and because of everything that had slowed down with shipping and this, that, and the third, supplies were behind. So the first appointment dates I could get weren't until February of 2022. Fine. February comes around, they come and do plaster work, but now I have to wait until April to get the rest of the work done. So from the time the appointments were scheduled up until this year, I started the process of packing things away, because my initial plan was to just take everything out of the house, put it in storage for a month or two. After all the work was done, bring it back in. And I had a conversation with my mother, and I'm glad I had that conversation with her. She was like, that's expensive. You're going to rent a storage room. You're going to rent a truck. You're going to take everything out. So I'm assuming you're hiring movers. You're going to take everything out of the house. You're going to put it in storage only to have to bring it back. Like, I don't know. That sounds like a lot. So I thought about it. I said, you know what? She's right. So I came up with an alternative. So I was able to borrow some space so that I could get things out. I'm thinking the space that I was going to borrow was going to be significantly larger. And my plan was, okay, if I can at least get the biggest and heaviest stuff into that space, then the smaller stuff won't be so bad if I'm putting that in the hallway, right? Because this is only a one-day project. Turns out, my friend I go to move some stuff because I have situated most of my stuff to where it's easy for me to maneuver. When I went to maneuver it, because it wasn't properly constructed, it almost fell apart on me. So I'm like, okay, this is a bad thing. I've already had the experience of this falling apart on me. Let's not have that experience again. So I called my friend, and he came through. While he's here working, he calls his sister. His sister says, yeah, yada, yada, yada. It's a 2-day affair. No, it's not. Not for me, because I have a 1-day appointment schedule. I don't know why my nose keeps itching like this. So please excuse me for keep rubbing my nose. I know it looks terrible, but it is what it is. And if you're listening, well, you don't get to see it. So while he's here, he calls his sister, who says, it's a 2-day thing. I said, no, not for me, because I only have one appointment scheduled. She said, no, they do the rip on one day and they do the install on the following day. But I only have one appointment scheduled. You might want to call, because they do the rip on one day and they do the install on the following day. So I reach out the following day. Yeah, you have 2 appointments scheduled. One is Thursday, one is Friday. We're not off on Fridays. That doesn't work. So I'm able to get some maneuvering done to get the appointment switched from Thursday and Friday to Wednesday and Thursday, gratefully. But now I need to make sure everything is done, because I'm about to run out of days. Let's backtrack. When the space that I was borrowing, I told you I thought it was significantly larger. And when I got to the space, it was like the size of a bathroom. And I'm like, okay, so what's not going to fit in here is a couch and a love seat and a this and a that. Now what? So what I was doing, and all of this is why these episodes have been like coming further up. No, so I won't say further apart, but I just haven't been as on point and on par as I would prefer to have been. Every day it's been like, okay, I got to move this, I got to move this, I got to move this. And some of these things I'm moving them, because I'm moving them by myself, I'm moving them one at a time, or because of the weight of it, I can't load a bunch of things. So I have to make several trips, and they're doing construction on my building and in my building. So there's only one elevator that's running on my side. So once I go downstairs and I lose that elevator, I have to wait for it to come in order for me to get back upstairs to get the next item. Okay. So I'm taking things down and I'm like, this room really doesn't fit much of anything. How am I supposed to do this? So there are times when I'm going downstairs and the stuff that's already in, I now have to pull it back out so that I can rearrange it to fit other things that I've brought down. I think I showed y'all in last week's episode just how much stuff ended up being in the hallway. That's the stuff in the hallway. That doesn't include the stuff that went into the closets. I think I might have shown you a clip of how I had the tree family in the bathroom and my kitchen was completely overrun with stuff. Like, there were things kind of a little bit of everywhere. And so it's been a thing. Last week they finished doing the floor install, and I'm like, breathe a sigh of relief. The hard part is done. And now it's time for me to put the stuff back. But I can't put the stuff all the way back because they're still coming to do more work. And I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? So I start putting things back, but not putting them exactly where they need to go or exactly where they're ultimately going to go, because I have to be mindful of how I'm going to set everything up and how that's going to work out for me when they come to do work, which they're coming in a few hours to do more work. I realized at that point, some of what I thought was the hard stuff being complete is not at all the hard stuff being complete, because it's just that it was the bigger and the heavier stuff. Because I got the bigger and the heavier stuff situated, I'm feeling good about that, because it's like, okay, well, once you get the big and the heavy stuff done, everything else kind of falls into place. But it doesn't. It's the little things, right? And I'm telling you all of this, one, so that I can keep you abreast, because I always keep it a stack with you. Also, because there were two important takeaways, and I think one of them just kind of occurred to me. The first important takeaway is that it really doesn't get easier. We think because we've gotten some of the big stuff or the major stuff out of the way that it gets easier to do the other things. And the reality is, it doesn't get easier until you believe it's easier, right? Because the little things, they're actually more complicated because they require more attention. Because the little things are the things that, it's not a big couch. A big couch is heavy, but once you've placed that big couch, you don't have to placing 12 chairs, you're placing one couch. But when you have this microphone and this board and this receiver and this cord and this laptop and this router and this and this and this that and this that and all these other things that are so much smaller, then you realize just how much stuff you have. And so when you're trying to get one room empty, sometimes because that one room is a mishmash of things from all these different rooms, you start taking things from that one room and just placing them in the rooms in which they belong. But now you've placed these things in the rooms in which they belong, but you haven't placed them where they go, right? Because in my case, I couldn't put them all back where they go because some of these things I'm going to have to turn around and move, and I won't have the manpower that I had in advance. I won't have that manpower to move it when they come to do the rest of the work. So I need to be able to move it on my own or run the risk of letting the workers move it as they see fit. And if they damage something, then that's on me. I have to sign off on that waiver. I'm not willing to do that. So then the little things become, instead of one room with total chaos, it's several rooms with a bunch of little fires. But it occurred to me that it doesn't become easier because you got the big things out of the way. It becomes easier when you change your mind about it. So when I stopped looking at it from the perspective of, all right, the hard part is done because I got the heavy stuff out of the way, and I started looking at it from the perspective of, okay, what do I feel like I can tackle? What am I ready to tackle? What am I willing to put my attention on? Let me pick one thing and focus on that one thing and just get that one thing done. And if I get that one thing done, or rather when I get that one thing done, then I can move on to the next thing. That was an important tool for me to implement in order for me to make progress. Like I've said, I'm not anywhere near done because I still have stuff in the borrowed space. I still have stuff kind of like a bunch of little items still. Like the plants have to be resituated, and there's certain things that have to be situated on the desktops. But because I've changed the setup of the desk, which eventually you'll see, because I've changed the setup of the desks, like the things that were on top of the desks now change. So it's a wild experience because it's like I thought that the hard part was over, but the hard part is over because I stopped thinking about it being hard, and I started thinking about it from the perspective of what's manageable. What am I, and not all of it altogether is manageable, but if I take on this one thing, this is manageable, and then once this one thing is complete, I can move on to the next thing. And then that thing is manageable. So now 2 things are done. Now I can move on to the next thing. You feel me? So I had to take a pause for the cause so I could figure out what the second thing was. But I think I really broached that topic in the last part. It becomes easier when you start to believe it stops being hard when you stop believing that it's hard and you start looking at the manageability of it all. And the other part was, it's the little things that require the attention. And I think that goes across the board. When we're dealing with life, sometimes, whether it's starting a business, whether it's maintaining relationships, whether it's work or professional spaces, right? We think because we've gotten the big things out of the way that everything else is going to be so much more manageable. And then it's the little things. It's the details, and details make the difference. I don't know. For those of you who know me intimately, you know, I always say life is in the details. I'm a details person, right? So I like to remember certain details, and I value that when people remember certain details about me. Life is in the details. But the details is where the fine-tuning happens. It's where the nitpicking takes place. And so putting a tabletop across a bunch of cubes and making that your workspace, that seems daunting until it's the little containers and all the other little things that need all this attention and need to be placed very explicitly. Also, figuring out how you can place those things in some type of collected space so that if you have to move all these individual items, you're moving them at one time. So how to move 1,700 pens and pencils and scissors and all these other office supplies all together instead of having to move them individually. And I think a lot of us overlook the importance of that in our day-to-day lives. We don't try to see how we can fit things together. So if we need to move them around, if we need to shift them, they're already placed together so that they make sense. So it's an easier move than one thing and one thing and one thing and one thing. And also when we deal with the big things first, because they're heavier, it gives us a false sense of satisfaction or completion because this big thing is out of the way. But the big thing was never really the issue. It was all the small components, right? And people who've been in failed relationships, they know that to be true. That it wasn't this big thing, it was all the little things stacked up on top. And they kept adding up and they kept adding up and they kept adding up. And the big thing was what we put all the attention on, but it was all the little things that we didn't address. So it's late and I don't want to ramble. And because I'm drowsy, rambling is a very real possibility. I just wanted you to keep that in mind. If you change your perspective on it, then it changes. So disassembling the house and putting it back together, it felt really daunting and it felt really challenging and it was discouraging. But I'm fortunate because I had people coming out of nowhere, popping up like, what do you need me to do? I'm available these days. I'm available these times. Well, I can make room in my calendar. Just let me know and I'm there. So I'm superbly grateful for the people who were willing. Make room for those people in your life and make sure that you're maintaining your relationship so that even without you having to call in help, when people call you at random, they're willing to drop everything or rearrange their life to come and help you. Remember that it's not the big things that are going to pose the most challenge. They seem like it because they might require the most help, but they're not going to require the most effort. The little things that you can't call in help for, the little things that even if you called in help, they're not going to really be much help because they're not going to know where to put this, or they're going to put it here and you're going to want it there, or they're going to throw it away and you're going to need to keep it, or they're going to try to keep it and you need it discarded, or it's something you don't really want anyone to touch. You understand what I'm saying? These things come up. So it's not the big things. It's the little things. They require a lot of attention. So be mindful of that. If you're going to do any type of moving, start now. Like if you're planning on moving within the next year, start packing now. And I know that sounds far-fetched, but you're going to do yourself a service, because if you start throwing things away from now and you start sorting through papers and looking at the things that you've been holding on to all this time that you really don't need, when it comes time for you to relocate, you won't feel that overwhelming urge of, I want to just take this whole room and just do a one-arm sweep and sweep it into a garbage bag. Because that feeling does come up. And most of us can relate to it, especially if we haven't been on top of maintenance and now the maintenance is staring us in the face like, hi, what are you going to do about me? So the sooner you start is the more control you'll be able to have over the situation, the closer you get to the date you need to be done. I think there was one other thing. Oh, my commitment. I will definitely be doing a few more episodes. I said that this season was supposed to be 16 episodes, and we're getting closer to that 16. I'm definitely going to see you through 16. I may extend it a little further. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But I just need a little bit more grace to get through the rest of this month to finish getting everything done and just get everything situated, because it's been a process. It's been a process. It's still a process. There's still work to be done. But I'm just appreciative. I'm appreciative of the progress that's being made. I'm appreciative of the lessons that are being learned in the process. I'm appreciative of your unwavering support. I'm appreciative of this journey. That's really it. Y'all go forth, be great, be filled with bliss, be armed and empowered with knowledge. Remember everything I said before this closing, because I'm not going to go back over it right now. In all things, be passionate. You'll get hair, makeup, well, maybe makeup, probably not hair. I don't know. For the next episode, every episode going forward, you'll get a little bit more until I'm back in that glamour space. Okay, that's my commitment to you. In the meantime, in all things, be passionate. I'll see you later.